Welcome to episode 98 of Sport SA Daily Diary. Today we're chatting to surf ski world champion, South African Dawid Mocke.
Let's go.
Good afternoon, David. How are you doing today, sir? Dawid.
Yeah, I'm going well. So we onwards and upwards, moving out of the great lockdown of 2020. So we'll see where we go from here.
And have you been able to get out into the ocean yet, or not yet?
So that's been a bit of a sticky situation there. We governed by Canoeing South Africa, and Canoeing South Africa was very engaging with the government, and so bit by bit we've been clawing our way back into the water. The regulations were very, very vague at the start, so there's quite a bit of confusion, but fortunately we're back on the water and we're able to go paddling, so that's been great. So grateful for that. That was 13 weeks off the water, and that was probably the longest that I haven't trained for, haven't been on the water in my career. So it was quite interesting.
I'm sure you were almost climbing the walls. It was probably almost like being in prison for you.
Yeah, interesting perspective. I mean, I think a lot of people might have felt that or thought that. I think for a lot of athletes, this might have actually been the best forced break that they've had in their careers. Not a bad thing at all. Being a competitive athlete, I'm sure every single other athlete in this country managed to stay fit somehow. And the fitness that they were getting here would have been complementary or supplementary to what they normally would be doing. So you probably find that for a lot of athletes, especially up at the elite level, at the elite level you get used to training with pain, and there might have been some injuries, underlying recovery that's never happened. And I would say that for a lot of athletes, probably this was a great time. Unfortunately for us, we're going into it was a big season ahead for paddlers, so we've basically missed the entire season. But I think that's probably the same for most athletes. So yeah, 13 weeks off the water, obviously not what you would want, but I think that there are definitely some plus sides. Also really enjoyed time with the family, and started getting used to a very nice lifestyle. So there were some pluses from that point. The negatives, obviously, the not being able to work and the economic fallout. I think, especially here in South Africa, it's going to be a long road to recovery. So, to anyone watching this, I just want to say, we need to really encourage each other and stand with each other. And, wherever you are able to do good or lend a helping hand, we should be doing that.
No, I mean, I couldn't agree more, and especially with a focus on the sporting industry. Or not particular, but with my focus on the sporting industry, it's really been completely decimated. From photographers to the event team, security, the lot. It's really been tough. Dawid, you've represented South Africa in two different disciplines, lifesaving and in surf ski, but we'll get onto that shortly. Tell us, growing up as a youngster, were you always in and around the ocean?
We moved to Cape Town, or to Fish Hoek particularly, when I was 8 years old, and that was from Durban. My dad was a swimmer. He's big into swimming, big water polo player, swimmer, and did surf lifesaving. And I did nippers when I was in Durban, but when we moved down here, life was different, circumstances were different. And it wasn't until I was 11 years old that I found my way down to the Fish Hoek Surf Lifesaving Club, and not out of my dad's pushing. One thing about my dad, he was my coach for many years, and he taught me a lot of things about racing and about being an athlete, but he never pushed us. He just always supported us. Once we decided to put our hand to something, then he would support us completely. But I was able to try a lot of different sports and a lot of different things. But living in Fish Hoek, beautiful beach and such a wonderful lifesaving club here. The lifestyle is awesome. So it didn't take. I was 11 when I started nippers down at the lifesaving club, and from there that kind of progressed to doing lifesaving, becoming a lifeguard, working on the beaches, doing community service, and then competing in surf lifesaving as a sport, and then representing South Africa. And then I started paddling quite late. I would say from a paddler's point of view, open water or long distance paddling. Before the surf ski, I did do a bit of canoeing as well, a bit of sprint canoeing. And my wife, she's a lot more accomplished in that side of things than I am. She went to the Olympics and she won a few world titles or a few medals at world marathon champ level. I only represented the marathon team once and did a few tours in sprint canoeing. But my first love has always been the ocean. And after surf lifesaving, I started doing the open ocean paddling.
Well, it's quite the talented family, hey? Your kids are going to be or canoers or paddlers of note. Dawid, my folks are actually in Fishhook, and I've been coming to Fishhook since I was 13. It's certainly the perfect beach for a youngster to learn the discipline of lifesaving and surf ski, to be quite honest.
Yeah, well, I always tell people that Fishhook is South Africa's #1 family beach. Yeah, it's awesome. There's something for everybody. It's relatively safe, barring a few incidences with some big fish a few years ago. But we seem to have sorted that out. But it's the #1 family beach, and it's a perfect place to be paddling. From my kids' point of view, yeah, we obviously we're trying to expose them to as much as possible. But it's you're obviously going to do what your family or your parents take you off to do. So, my son obviously plays rugby. He loves it. He loves water polo, does a bit of cycling, but he definitely loves paddling. He's been doing some downlands with me. And now my daughter has said, no, she also wants to start paddling. And I took her for a paddle over the weekend in a double, which was fantastic. So the whole family went out and caught waves at Muizenberg Beach. And that was great. So it's awesome to be able to do something like this with your family, and everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And Dawid, you first represented South Africa in lifesaving as a board paddler. Tell us a bit about that. What is the difference between a sort of swimming lifesaver and a board paddler?
Lifesaving is if you are fit for surf lifesaving, I guarantee you amongst the fittest athletes in the world. I think the two types of athletes that are the most underrated in terms of overall fitness and cardiovascular fitness are triathletes and surf lifesavers. And honestly, because you need to be able to swim, run, and manage your craft in intense environments. Going in and out through the surf and through the waves takes skill, it takes commitment, it takes courage. You've got to be fit, and there's a lot of different boxes that you need to be able to tick to be a lifeguard. A paddleboard or a Malibu board is a life-saving craft. So it's something that you would see on beaches all around the world, be next to the life-saving tower. And it's definitely the quickest and easiest way for someone to get out to somebody in a surf break. Yeah. So essentially, all life-saving events are sort of simulated to a rescue situation, or are highlighting the fact that a lifeguard has to be fit, has to be agile, and multifaceted. So board paddling was definitely my favorite, my choice event when I was younger. And it's a few years ago I went to the surf lifesaving camps and entered the competition again. And I got to tell you, I don't know if a board is an event for an older person. Definitely when you're younger, you're a bit more flexible, but it's a super fast event, and it's a great event to do.
I mean, I don't think the lifesavers and the competition and the guys that are just on the beach really get the credit that they deserve. You then helped start the World Series of surf ski, and then you went on to win the world title 4 times. That's a pretty remarkable effort there.
Adam, I've always said, underlying that whole journey is the belief that I have that passion precedes purpose, and that you've been designed and created. There's certain things that you just love doing that you are drawn to naturally, and those are things that you're passionate about. And I always tell people that if you decide in your heart that you're going to pursue your passion, then your purpose in life will be opened up. So to that end, when I discovered open ocean paddling on the back of Surf Lifesaving, I started the surf ski school to teach people how to paddle surf skis, because for one, I wanted to show and share the joy, and secondly, I wanted to make a life out of it. Part of that obviously was going to these events. And after I did my first event in 2004, my first international race was here in Cape Town in 2002, the King of the Harbour. And then 2 years later, I then went to New Zealand to compete in their King of the Harbour event. And on the back of that, there were a number of paddlers, prominent paddlers at the time, that were really trying to get this World Series going. And amongst them are they need no introduction, but is Oscar Chalupsky, another fellow from Australia called Dean Gardner. There's a guy in South Africa who started a website called surfski.info, and Rob Mousley, and they, there was sort of a group of people that were really trying to push. So, I wouldn't say that I was an organizer of it as such, as much as I was a purveyor of it. So really trying to motivate athletes to go to these events, and then trying to sculpt a way that we could score and compare points basically over a series of events. A world championship race is a great way to find the world champion, but in something like surf ski paddling, where conditions are so varied and it's very difficult to get measurable, sort of accurate, you can't really have a world record in surf ski paddling because conditions are different, courses are different. You definitely want to find the most consistent paddler, and the person that's the most consistent, would then be your best paddler. So that's what we were trying to do by starting the World Surf Ski Series. And Oscar won that. Oscar won the first two or three, and then I won it from 2009 to 2012. I think Hank McGregor's won one or two, and now the sort of balance of power has moved over to Australia, so we're going to have to get it back sometime.
No, we certainly can't be relinquishing all of that to to Australia. Tell me, David, how do you actually score for a world championship competition? Because in surfing, it's a lot easier. I would imagine the guys are doing tricks and they're on the board, but I wouldn't imagine it's quite that simple on the surf ski.
Yeah, look, it's all position based. So you're basically racing, and you would score points based on races, and then the races are actually ranked. So very similar to surfing. Surfing, the events are ranked, and you get a weightier score for a bigger event. So basically, the more competitive an event is, the heavier the score is if you do well in that event. And then there's also a difference in the points breakdown in between events. So that's how you would score. Basically, you need to win an event or do well, basically based on the podium. You'd score an X amount of points. And then if there are, the first year we had sort of 10 races in the series, and then that moved down to about 5 races, where, out of the 10 or the 5 races, the person who did the best consistently over those would walk away with the title. That being said, the level of competition is really, it's tough. It's a very competitive sport, and you're not going to walk away with the World Series title unless you've won at least one of those races.
Yeah. And David, do you feel that you've got the necessary recognition from sport in South Africa and sport associations in South Africa for being a 4-time world champion?
Yeah, Adam, it's a difficult question to answer because sports is not just about the athlete. Although every athlete, by nature, you're actually quite selfish because it is all about you, and it's about you being fit, and it's about your sport and your event. But the sports industry it really is about the size of a sport is what dictates the kind of recognition that you get for it, I suppose. The amount of competitors that do a particular sport, and then also the amount of eyes that get to watch that sport, how engaging it is, and how much sponsors or events can earn from it. So I understand that the sports industry is very complicated, I suppose, or perhaps it's quite simple. More people means there's more recognition. definitely, if you're doing if you're doing surf ski paddling or surf lifesaving, you're doing it because you love it, and and off you go. It would be very nice to get more support from a government point of view, because ultimately any athlete in South Africa that's doing well is bringing pride to the country, and is promoting the country, and is promoting a certain lifestyle. So I would say from that point of view, from an official point of view, no, I think more could be done to give smaller sports recognition, and but ultimately you need to go, when you go into a sport like this, you can't be doing it just because you want to earn a living from it. You need to be doing it because you love it, and that's the reason you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think the smaller sports do suffer, but I still feel they deserve the recognition. It doesn't have to be a financial recognition, but just some form of recognition in terms of, in the South African Sports Awards, or just being recognized by sport in South Africa, just for the accomplishments that you've done. As you say, you do it because you love the sport, not because it's financially viable. But it would be nice to be properly recognized and just given some sort of recognition.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, Adam. I know you probably got another question lined up, but I mean, if we're going to get into debate on this one, something like this, it also can't be coming from the athletes, because it needs to be a top-down. It needs to be coming from the top down, and I try to avoid politics or being polarized as much as possible. However, when I accompanied my wife to the Olympic Games in Beijing, and also being part of that journey, my eyes were open to so many things in the official administrative aspect of sport in South Africa. And you would have seen in the news the last few weeks how Canoeing South Africa is taking on SASCOC and taking on the board. And there's been a number of sports journalists that have written about sports administration in South Africa, and some of the pitfalls and things that are going wrong there. And I would say that a lot of athletes, or a lot of athletes that don't get recognition, it comes from, I mean, mismanagement is a strong word to use, but it kind of relays how I feel about that. For instance, you can think of a number of athletes that have gone to the Olympic Games who would have told you about not receiving their funding, even weeks or leading up to the Olympic Games. But then when you get there, there's a whole host of officials who are at the games and staying in the best hotels, and guaranteed none of them have missed their salaries. So there seems to be an upside down priority list when it comes to sport in South Africa, and I would say more on the government side than on the federation side. I think when you look at any of the smaller sports federations, you're looking at people that are running the federations because they love the sports and they're giving up their time to do it. Anyway, I don't want to stick my neck out too much, but
no, I mean,
I think I voiced the frustration of many athletes, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and I had a chat to Roland Skuman a couple of days ago, and he's of the very similar opinion. However, I do feel that sportsmen need to put their hand up and position themselves to be involved as well. So yes, we need government to come to the party, but yes, the sportsmen also need to be involved, to put their case forward, to run the sport, to manage the sport, to develop the sport further. I have experienced a lot of associations before where they just expect and they're giving nothing in return. So I do feel the sportsmen also have a responsibility within their own individual sports as well. So enough about politics. Tell me a bit about the picture behind me and your experience in the Antarctica.
Behind you?
Yes.
Yeah, so, okay. So, that picture, I'm busy paddling next to a gentleman by the name of Lewis Pugh. And many people would have heard of Lewis, the human polar bear, and he's an environmentalist. and he campaigns for the protection of oceans, and particularly Antarctica, and he wants to create marine protected reserves there. I joined the Antarctica 2020 expedition team a few years ago as part of their team specifically as a safety kayaker for Lewis Pugh, and accompanied him on 2 expeditions. And that's for me is really an example of how your passion can precede your purpose. I spent years on the ocean, and it's always been a desire of mine to protect the ocean somehow. And you often ask yourself, well, how can my gift or my talent of paddling or my sport help towards a cause which seems non-related? But because of the skill set that I've got, being a lifeguard, doing a lot of open water swimming with my dad, understanding what open water swimming is, and then being a paddler and having the experience of launching off beaches and whatever, Lewis approached me to be a safety kayaker. And in that particular picture there was a lot of responsibility on me at that point. I had to mark out the kilometer swim, make sure that it was on par, time the whole swim, manage the team, do all the safety procedures, all the pickup and drop off points, and there's a whole team involved. When you're swimming in -1 degree water, very far from any kind of civilization, there's a lot at stake. It's high stakes. So there's a big team involved. I'm not just me. It's not just me and Lewis in a tent on the beach there. I can tell you that much. But that picture really that was a wonderful experience. And anyone watching the show you can go to the Lewis Pugh Foundation.org on the internet and go and see what the Lewis Pugh Foundation does. Maybe you'd consider supporting them. And I hope that I'll be involved with the foundation for 4 years to come still.
And Dawid, tell me, did you put your toe in the water there?
I think I've lost you there, Adam.
Sorry, the question was, did you put your toe in the water there where Lewis was swimming?
Adam, I did. All right, so I'm just going to answer the question. If we're stopping and starting, maybe you can edit this out a little bit later. Did I put my toe in the water? Well, yes, actually, funny story. Being a competitive athlete, your mindset is always kind of, if you can do it, I can do it. You always got that edge. So in the back of my mind, I was thinking, Lewis, it's remarkable. You can swim a kilometer, but I'm pretty sure that given, I could probably manage at least 100 meters, So off I went. I stripped down to my Speedo, and I was going to show these boys that it's something that you can do. So I just dived in, and I managed 10 strokes actually before I thought I was going to faint, and I quickly skedaddled back to the boat. Ice swimming is actually it's a thing, and there are a few guys that do it. And it definitely takes a lot of, what's the word? You need to acclimatize yourself. You need to condition your body, and but Lewis definitely takes it to the next level. He's a pioneer, and you got to know any kind of swim that he's going to sign up for is going to be a first, and there's going to be some grit involved in doing it.
Dawid, what does the future hold? You mentioned a little bit earlier that you still competed with a bit of Lifesaving. You're obviously still competing surf ski. Where's the future for Dawid?
As an athlete, the older athletes, there's things that change in life, and if someone's a world champion, you look at some of the older world champions and some of the other sports these days, and some remarkable athletes. I'm thinking like Roger Federer is probably the first name that comes to mind on everyone's lips. 37 or 38, still leading the charge. If you look at 1 year changing to the next year, what changes? Nothing really changes. Why would you not continue to be at the top of your game for years to come? The answer is simple: is that the older you get, two things change. the first is your ability to recover. Your body's ability to recover from intense training and from injury becomes harder. So the older you get as an athlete, you need to make sure that you stay injury-free. And then you can prolong your career, which is why the 13-week break was pretty good for a lot of athletes. And the second thing that changes is your level of motivation. It's, do I still want to get up and train, especially when you... Are you back?
Yeah, still with you.
Sorry, that was a phone call coming through. Your level of motivation changes, so your other priorities come into play, and it obviously it's up to each individual athlete. But I don't want to stand at the tail end of a career chasing one more victory or chasing one more title and having my family pay the price, or asking them to hold on to something, like we'll go on that trip next year, or I'll take you surfing, next time, when I'm off on a Saturday morning for a long paddle. So priorities change, so what's next for Dawid Mocke? Well, look, competing is always going to be part of who I am and part of who Nikki is as well. But we'll do it as a family. We'll obviously you do less events. So I'm not going to go on a World Series event, but I'm certainly going to try and train for one or two events. But they'll be a lot more tempered, I guess. And that's from an athletic point of view. But my life has been built around my passion. So I've got a business that operates in the paddling world. I've got the brand. We make paddling gear and accessories. I've got the schools that teach other people how to paddle, and I coach people. So coaching is probably going to start getting a bit more prominent, and helping other people to achieve their best. There's something about exercise and not just exercise, but competing or training for an event, which really can help a person in all aspects of their life. And so, I'm very aware of that. And so, we want to try and help anyone be the best person that they can be. So I suppose that's probably where we headed from here.
Well, there's no reason that it's not going to be an exciting future. Dawid, it's been brilliant chatting to you today on Sport SA Daily Diary. We look forward to maybe one of the Mocke junior kids being a world champion in the distant future. But
we'll see.
Good luck being back on the ocean, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Adam. Thank you.
Okay. Cheers. Bye-bye. Catch tomorrow's episode of Sport SA Daily Diary, where we chat to a South African that has won 6 national motorsport championships and was a Formula One racer.